From 1977, the Dietary Guidelines declared that fat is the main killer. They said it should be replaced with heart-healthy grains and sugars. Today we will take a closer look at Inuit people. In their traditional diet, fat can take up to 80%, which is guaranteed to kill you according to the well-established medical dogma. Inuit are indigenous people living in remote Arctic areas of Canada, Alaska and Greenland.
Meat and fish make 90% of their diet.
It includes such animals as seals, caribou, reindeer, moose, bear, fish and whales.
The whole animal would be consumed, including the brain, eyes and even some bones. Reindeer stomach with half-digested grass still inside would be a special treat. Most of the meat was eaten raw. Fish could also be fermented.
During summertime, which lasts about 2 months, some nuts and berries were also available. Today, no Inuit people eat 100% traditional diet anymore. All of them switched to relying mostly on Western foods. So here's the question. Were Inuit people healthy back in the day when we were eating the traditional diet? We have multiple reliable accounts that answer this question. One of the best sources is probably Dr. Weston Price, who studied Inuit in 1933. It was a part of his massive 10-year study of indigenous tribes in 14 countries around the world. After closely examining over a dozen of separate Inuit settlements, he and other researchers came to the following medical conclusions.
Inuit who ate the traditional diet had supreme health. Modern diseases were absent. There were no conditions requiring surgeries. Dental perfection such as seldom excelled by any race. Ease and efficiency of childbirth. Infants did not cry. No difficulties with the cutting of their teeth. No signs of vitamin or mineral deficiency. Yes, life expectancy was shorter due to poor sanitation and traumatic injuries. But elderly indigenous health was superior to the Western one in all aspects.
The accounts from the settlements that started using flour, sugar and vegetable oil are very different. Presence of all Western diseases, cancer, heart disease, asthma, diabetes, hypertension and obesity, dental caries, tooth decay and crowded teeth. Tuberculosis became the main epidemic. Tuberculosis, or shortly TB, is a bacterial disease. It spreads through airborne droplets released through coughing. Most often it affects lungs. Bad news, almost 3 billion people, or 1/3 of the world's population, are infected with this disease. Good news, 90% of those infected people never get sick. The unlucky 10% do have a chance to progress into the active form sometime during their life. The treatment is very complex and it takes anywhere from 6 months to 3 years. If not treated, the death rate is 60%. About 90% of all children worldwide get a shot for protection, but it's not so effective. Almost 2 million people die every year from tuberculosis. The records show that Inuits that were still on the traditional diet had high immunity to tuberculosis. Those were the modernized Inuits who were suffering and dying from TB, at probably the highest rate ever recorded in the world. This epidemic turned into humanitarian disaster when Canadian government decided to treat those Inuits from 1940s till 1960s. Often without their consent, thousands of Inuits were taken from their homes to the southern parts of Canada for treatment. Families were separated with no communication. Those evacuated had no access to their cultures, communities or their traditional food. They were forced to stay in hospitals for, in average, 2.5 years, sometimes tied to beds. In many areas, close to a half of Inuit population went through such camps. In 2019, Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, officially apologized for the government's mistreatment of tuberculosis in Arctic Canada. Unfortunately, the main problem has never been fixed. Today, Canadian Inuit rates of tuberculosis are 290 times higher compared to non-Indigenous Canadian population. The government blames it on crowded housing and lack of health care. Exactly the conditions that Inuits were living in and thriving for centuries. Few are willing to acknowledge that it was the dietary change that led to this disaster. After the first encounters, the Inuit paradox became a well-known fact. The traditional Inuit diet and the supreme health that was coming with it was amusing a lot of researchers. Unfortunately, it did not fit into the modern paradigm with the grains, sugars and vegetable oils in its core. So it was just written off as an anomaly and later as a gene adaptation. Dr. Vilhjalmur Stefansson, a Canadian anthropologist, was one of the few who would not agree to such nonsense. From 1906, he spent over 10 years in Arctic in a close contact with Inuit, and over 6 of those years he ate nothing but meat. After finishing his exploration, he was sharing the amazing results of his dietary changes. By his account, he never felt better, both physically and mentally. Doctors did not believe him. Especially, they did not want to accept that there would not be any scurvy with such meat-only diet. Scurvy is a deadly disease resulting from the lack of vitamin C. The body can no longer produce collagen and starts to disintegrate. Skin begins to blister and break down. Gums begin to rot and teeth become loose. Bones break and wounds open up. Blood vessels leak. Hallucinations and seizures begin. First symptoms show up in just 4 to 6 weeks, and the death comes in just a couple months. Scurvy killed almost 2 million sailors before, in 1795, it was discovered that lemon can stop this disease. In 1928, Stefansson and his colleague Anderson checked into a New York hospital. Under very tight 24-hour supervision of top doctors, they ate nothing but meat for the whole year. The results of this controlled experiment were published in the Journal of Biological Chemistry in 1930. No deficiency problems were observed. Bowels remained normal. Both Stefansson and Anderson, after 1 year of eating nothing but meat, remained perfectly healthy. It turns out that the traditional Inuit diet was providing all vitamins and all minerals required for the superb health. We're not suggesting that you should switch to the traditional Inuit diet. Our point is that the modern dietary guidelines got it all wrong.
Got it all wrong.
Got it all wrong.
Animal fats are not the killer. It is grains, sugar, and vegetable oil that make you sick. Unfortunately, Inuit paid a dear price to prove it.
Don't let it go to waste.